It is the final word, World Cup Daily, day 18. The first day without games. Adam Collins in London, Geoff Lemon in St Lucia. The last group game was last night. You were covering it. West Indies, Afghanistan. Tell us about that in 30 seconds to get us going.
It was all about a power play. I was quite bullish about Afghanistan going into it with their opening quicks. They got absolutely smashed by West Indies, 92 off the first 6 overs. That set them up for a late charge to 218, although they were slowed down through the middle by Noor Ahmad, but Nicholas Pooran batted through most of the innings, made 98, got run out near the end. Extraordinary display of hitting, tore apart Rashid Khan. And Afghanistan never really came back from the shell shock of what they conceded. They were nowhere near it in the chase. They lost Gurbaz for a duck, and it was all downhill from there. They were all out for 114 for a massive loss. And I mean, I genuinely thought going into it, I thought this is evenly matched the way these two teams have gone through the group stage. It was a battle to see who would finish top of the group. They both qualified. It didn't matter, but Afghanistan had been so good. And then it was just West Indies going, home crowd, flex the muscles. Sure, you've got Gulbadine and his biceps, but we are going to bang the living shit out of some of this bowling, and the six hitting was relentless.
It was reminiscent of the Darren Sammy sides that won World Cups in 2012 and 2016 at Darren Sammy Stadium. So, there were 12 sixes hit in total, 8 of them from the blade of Nicholas Pooran. Nick Pooran run out, direct hit from our boy Azmatullah Amazai, right towards the end, 2 runs short of what would have been an amazing 100. He was coming back for the second run, and it didn't quite work out. And Azmatullah throwing it in from about 70 metres. It was excellent fielding. And there were some moments, right? Again, Azmatullah knocking over Brandon King with a searing Yorker early on. I thought the way Naveen took pace off to get Johnson Charles just towards the end of the power play, maybe just out of it. Like, the skill level's high, but it's the first time that Fazal Haq Farooqi hasn't got wickets at the start. He's been such a big part of their success early on. And from that point, you got your spinners in Rashid Khan, who's under the pump, concedes 45 runs. How often has Rashid Khan conceded 45 runs in a T20 international? I would say you could count it on one hand. This is going to be a podcast that includes my daughter here, by the way. Geoff, Winnie is around with us, so we'll include her as we need to. But you can pick up that thought that Afghanistan had a statement made by the Windies, didn't they? Because the Windies did feel like they were, dare I say it, the number 2 seed coming out of the group stage. It felt like Afghanistan were the more damaging of the teams in the games we've seen so far. The Windies were far from convincing in their first game a couple of weeks ago, but maybe hitting form at the perfect time.
It was chastening in every respect. So they opened up with Naveen, who gets tonked. With Fazal Haq first, who's first ball of the innings seemed to indicate something. It was good delivery. It's left arm. It's quick. It's curling into the pads. Maybe it's just over pitched by a little bit, but it's clipped away through. Long on for 4, stylishly along the ground.
Beautiful, wasn't it?
It was like, okay, well, you're not going to have a great night, and things just unrolled from there pretty much. So you had Brandon King and Johnson Charles opening up, and then they didn't go to Naveen for the second over. They went to Azmatullah. He bowls that beauty. It comes back off the seam. It goes through the gate. It knocks over Brandon King for 7. So you're going, okay, sure, they I think they went for 12 or 15 off the first over, and then the wicket falls, and okay, well, maybe they're sort of going to exert some control, and then it just doesn't happen. Naveen comes on and gets absolutely lamped, and then Azmatullah comes back for the 4th over, and Jesus Christ, in terms of chastening experiences, the over ends up costing 36. They weren't all off the bat because there were 4 leg buys, so he gets away with conceding only 32 of them. And here's the thing: it wasn't even that bad an over in some ways. Like he gets hit for a 6, and he's just overstepped. So then there's a free hit situation in there. He bowls a brilliant Yorker for the free hit, doesn't concede anything. But that's after he's tried to bowl a bouncer for the initial free hit, which goes over the batter, over the wicketkeeper, away for 5 wides. So you've had no ball 6 plus 5 wides. It's pretty hard to get out of it with an inexpensive over from there. And we've talked about the excitement that we've got about Azmatullah's bowling. But seeing like such a quality player get smashed, I didn't see a lot of pace off from the Afghan quicks early because, I don't know if they just weren't going to that variation, but they were trying pace, and the faster they bowled, the harder they got hit. And Rashid Khan has to bring himself on in the power play. He goes for a dozen there, and so they end up, like I said, with 92 off the first 6 overs, and it was basically game over from that point, even though Afghanistan did pull back some control for a while in the middle and then lost it again at the end.
Well, Akil Hussain getting a wicket in the first over of the defence, knocking over Ramanullah Gurbaz that you mentioned before. And they've got a lot of bases covered. You know, I mean, Andre Russell, he's 104 years old. He's got 0 knees, but he still does enough with bat and ball and still bowls quick enough. And we saw the way he batted against Australia at Hobart a few months ago. Our Zari Joseph got a wicket with a searing, snorting bouncer. They've got the second spin option with Moti and then the Royal McCoy, 3 for 14, another night, another dream, and always you. You know, they, I don't know, can they win it? If you were doing a power ranking depth chart, this was put to me. Again, as you answer this, Geoff, I'm going to fix my daughter's icy pole. Do you think that, like, is this legit? If we were seeding the teams now, not the way the ICC did it a couple of months ago, but right now, based on what we've seen, are the Windies the 4-3 seed, the 4 seed? Are we really saying that?
Are they? Maybe they're higher than that. I don't know. I was talking to Bharat about this last night, about how the wheels of the bandwagon would be groaning with the extra weight of seeing them get on top. And this could just be one great night, and it could be the night where they finally, get on a decent batting pitch and they get a bowling team that doesn't adapt to it quickly enough. So I don't know if it's necessarily applicable across every other contest, but they'll have England at the same ground. They had a sellout. The crowd involvement was massive. Like the cheering. It's not just cheering for every six. There's this thing that the crowd were doing here, which I hadn't heard before. But as the bowler's running in, they start. There's this kind of chant that a bunch of the people are doing, where they sort of go, ooh, ooh, oof, and it's like intimidating. And then the ball gets hit for 6 and they'll go, wah, and up it goes. I mean, I can see how a team would wilt in those circumstances.
And when you get on a roll with the crowd support, right? Like, there's something about, being the host of a global tournament does work, right? We've seen it in 50 over cricket, with the exception of last year, that home sides tend to do very well in these competitions. And when you got the wind behind your back, literally, in terms of the way the game was last night, with one side favoured by that, but also the extra, whatever you get from the crowd. Nick Pooran was riding that wave last night. And look, he was going back a while here now, but he was the player of the final in the MLC last year, which would have been a very high quality game of cricket, given the players who were in it. He made an unbeaten 100 there. He was player of the tournament as well. So he's played a lot of IPL. He's been around the West Indies setup for a number of years. He took a great catch, the one I mentioned before, Alzari Joseph, that bumper. Is he the kind of guy who can, win you a tournament? Remember that the Windies setup under Darren Sammy was all about having 5 guys who could theoretically be the match winner in a World Cup final. They never set up about being consistent. It was about having enough guys who could do it. I know that Shai Hope is more the glue in this team, made 25 from 17 the other night, but Rodman Powell, some of those sixes down the ground were stunning from him to finish it off, to stick the landing down the list. And then Andre Russell, barely required last night. We know how effective he's been as a finisher for a decade. And are there enough match winners there that someone will work?
Well, Rutherford won the game against New Zealand with the bat.
Yeah.
He's coming in down at 7. Hope was super aggressive initially last night. He came in, obviously,
2 sixes.
With that thing in mind about having been the slightly slower player. But we saw him in the IPL bump his scoring rate and really make a point of trying to score more quickly. So he did that initially and hit a couple of sixes. And Pooran through the innings, who, like I said, I might touch on this more in the Hall of Fame, but there are some overs of spin from Noor Ahmad where they're a bit more cautious and they're not quite sure how to read him, and they just knock him around for a while and then push the accelerator again at the end and go past 200. But yeah, Pooran does seem like the kind of player who could ride a wave for the next week or so. I mean, they've only got the finals in 11 days from now.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks of surfing this, and who knows, right at the moment, I'd be more confident about West Indies going up against South Africa or going up against England than either of those sides from what I've seen through the tournament so far.
Well, that's it. I mean, we'll just turn our attention briefly to how the Super 8s shape up. So in Group A, Australia, India, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. I feel different about that group to what I did before Afghanistan were pants last night.
Yeah.
Bangladesh is bowling. I feel like they are doing things with the ball that could put India or Australia under pressure, but their batting isn't quite there. No. Afghanistan, if they come off, we know how effective they can be. They beat a number of teams last year at the 50 over World Cup who are ranked higher than them, but they'd need a special night to beat Australia or India, although they should have beat Australia in the 50 over World Cup last year. That feels like the easier of the groups. And then the tougher of the groups, England, who have a high ceiling, haven't reached it this series so far, but we know what they can do. The USA will be the 4 seed, but then the Windies on a roll, as we're saying, in South Africa with the ball. Yep, their batting's been lousy, but with the ball have been as dynamic as anyone, with Henrik Nortje, the best T20 World Cup bowler ever. So statistically, that is. So there's a bit going on there in terms of how the games all shake out. The first of those is America up against South Africa. That's on Wednesday in Antigua. England, Windies, the other game in Group 2, the first of those Super 8 games being played, where you are, Geoff, at the Darren Sammy at Gros Soleil in St Lucia. Then the other side of the draw on Thursday, Afghanistan playing India at Kennington Oval in Barbados, and Australia have Bangladesh at Antigua, where they were training, Geoff. They started their training this morning at 10 past 8 in the morning, Australia. So they're playing a game at 8:30 at night, so you can draw your own conclusions there about that kind of prep. But anyway, they've got Bangladesh, who they have a great record against.
Well, they will have India at the end of the group in an early game, Australia, in one of the 10:30 starts. So maybe it was to do with that. And it's bloody hot here. I'll tell you what. Like through the middle of the day, it is enervating. So the 10:30 a.m. games are not going to be easy ones. You'd much rather be playing the night games in terms of the Tony Greig Player Comfort Index. I feel like USA South Africa, I think, is maybe our best chance for an upset, given that South Africa have been stumbling through. I mean, probably what happens is once South Africa get on a decent batting pitch, they'll be able to, one of their players will come into it. But I suppose it's just a team that hasn't had that opportunity to actually bat well, and they've been scraping through with these low scoring wins. But they don't know they don't know what it feels like in the last couple of weeks to hit a ball nicely, really. So I'm getting my vibes are that Heinrich Klaasen is Lance Klusener, probably the best in the world at what he does at the moment, probably going to do something outrageous, and it probably won't quite be enough, and they still won't win it anyway. That's just the feeling I'm getting.
A word for the format. We've had 20 teams reduced to 8. I don't like the precedings, but I do like the process. I like the fact that we don't go to quarterfinals now. I like the fact that there is still... I would have loved a bit of carryover points action, maybe some net run rate, maybe different seedings. Sure, that's all stuff that we can consider later and ensure there's not any unintended consequences in what I'm saying. But broadly speaking, I don't like that bit. But I do like the fact that we go to this second stage. And it's not Super 8s where we're all playing each other like it was in the Caribbean in the 50 over World Cup in 2007. It's a relatively short, sharp second stage, 3 games each, and on we go. It should make for a nice interregnum before we move to the knockout games, the 2 semi-finals and the final. I like the fact that we've got this second step, and that'll be part of the 50 over World Cup the next time around as well, when it goes to 14 teams and they're split into groups of 7. And again, we reduce that back to 6 or 8 in this second part. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it has seemed to be working so far. We didn't have a lot of dead games. There were a couple towards the back end of the pool stage. We've had upsets, and we've had ones that were nearly there. We've had games with a fair bit of interest in them, and really it's only been the last couple of really high scoring games here at St Lucia that have been dull in the second half, because the first half pyrotechnics were there and the chasing team couldn't get near it. In the Dutch against Sri Lanka the other night, and then Afghanistan against West Indies here.
All right, Geoff, before we go to the break, we are here with Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. Football might be coming home.
Is it?
Football, it might be. It might be.
Before. Yeah.
It might be that the win over Serbia wasn't convincing. Jude Bellingham's a fucking good player. But they were hard held in the second half. As Martin D'Stasio once said, I blame the Serbs. Football might be coming home, but that doesn't mean you should be at home to watch it happen. The Heineken Sports Bar at Gravity Max is the best place to watch Harry Kane and his mates attempt to score between 0 and 4 goals against countries that keep Nigel Farage awake at night. And if you're ever in a bar with Daniel Norcross, dear listeners, as he would say, ask him about what it was like when Nigel Farage was a prefect at his school when he was in the junior school at Dulwich College. Farage was one of Daniel's prefects, so that's his first memory of him. And I won't steal his thunder, but some of the behaviour from Nigel Farage at age 16 would not surprise you whatsoever. And if you're worried about not getting a seat, then worry no more, book one of the booths for the ultimate private screening viewing experience for you and your mates. There's even an ice bucket built into the table, so you won't miss any of the game's 21 seconds of action because you're lining up to get another delicious pint of Heineken. Westfield, Stratford City, exit through the South Gate. Very good, Shagger.
That may be his peak. That might be the best copy we've got. Doing a drive-by of not only Reform UK, but also just the game of football. It was, I'm in favour of. It was on England's Euros game was on when we were on a 7-hour delay or something in Barbados Airport the other day, and so the airport was just all English travellers clustered around this one tiny television in a bar with the poor bartender who was just trying to have a normal day, and suddenly there were like 40 Englishmen all trying to look at her tiny television because it was all they could find.
There really is nothing better though than it's, as I said to you, I think on the show yesterday, it's getting those long days have really started here in long days, middle of summer, tournament, England football team. It's the best. So Thursday, they've got Denmark at 5 p.m. That'll be just carnage. Pubs will be absolutely brimming. So looking forward to that. Hey, we're going to take a break. After that, bit of Hall of Fame, bit of throw forward. This is the Final Word Daily, day 18, Westfield, London, Westfield, Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. Hall of Fame. I'll go first, Geoff. Okay. How about USA? How about USA Cricket doing so well in this tournament that the White House, from commenting on their progress this afternoon, the National Security Communications Advisor, John Kirby, was doing a press conference. And he was asked a question about Team USA making it to the Super 8, and he was totally across it. He's like, the Super 8 stage, we're all rooting for them. The question was kind of a patronising, this sport that no one knows anything about. And he was like, no, we're amazing performance so far, getting to the Super 8s, and we're all going to be watching in the White House. Like, that is about as good there's better PR than that. But the fact that it's got to that point, I watched that West Wing episode that's come up on Storytime before, where the president's referring to Scotland and Bermuda. That was on the other night at our place. And I'm like, gee, how far it's come from a sort of fictional cricket being a piss take thing in America to, being at this stage of the tournament. So I know I've been quite bullish on the America thing all the way through, and I've been quite keen to emphasize the positives. Well, there's another one here.
Okay, it'd be particularly funny if he was going into detail. If they're door-stopping Anthony Blinken, and he's like, "Oh, I'm really impressed with the way that Aaron Jones has lifted his strike rate through the middle overs. Left arm spin. That's a great matchup for him. Let's hope he can keep on pounding those dingers." So I've got a couple from the game last night. I mentioned Noor Ahmad. I mean, we know how good he's been. What is he, 20 years old? We saw him playing.
I don't think he's even that. I think he was 17 at the World Cup, wasn't he? I think last year. He might be 18 now.
Might have been 19 at the World Cup.
Right, okay.
He might have ticked over by now, but without looking it up.
He's a kid.
He's young. He's a kid. He bowled really well in a couple of those 50-over World Cup games. He comes out on a night in which Fazal Haq Farooqi goes for 38 off 3 overs, Azmatullah 41 off 2, Rashid Khan goes for 45, Naveen goes for 41, Muhammad Nabi bowls 1 over that goes for 15. Noor Ahmad comes in and bowls 4 overs, none for 20 in the middle of that. I think he went for a 2, and the rest of them were singles and dots. They couldn't sort of figure him out. He bowls left arm wrist spin. He turns it a lot when he decides to. He slides it on with the arm sometimes. And he just wasn't really hittable. He bowled a really good length. Couldn't get under it. Nobody could trust themselves against him. It was an incredible display, and it was almost like a flex in a way from Pooran to be like, well, I'm going to treat this guy with respect. But when Rashid comes back for the 17th over or whatever it is, I'm going to pump him for 3 sixes. You think you're the best in the world, do you? He just kept rocking back and pulling Rashid bombs over mid-wicket, and balls that weren't even really short, but Pooran was just on one by that point. And I mean, he could have made the 100. It was 3 balls to go, and he was trying to get back on strike. It might have been 2 to go even. There would have been 2 after the one that he'd faced. So had he lost the strike, he would have been on 97 off strike with 2 balls to come. He might have got back on strike, but who cares in a way? But I liked that he took on the throw because he's like, oh well, let's just see if I get back. And had it not been a 70-meter direct hit, then he would have.
Well, that sounds like a perfectly acceptable place to leave our final word Hall of Fame for Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City.
More, actually.
Sorry. On you go.
Yeah,
so, okay.
You probably didn't pick this up, but Afghanistan, they have a short sleeve shirt and they have a long sleeve shirt. in their team uniforms. You've got a couple of options you can use. The short sleeve shirt has a kind of light blue cuff around the bottom of the short sleeve, and the long sleeve one is a long sleeve shirt, obviously. Gulbadine Naib, who also bowled really well, by the way, 2 overs, 1 for 15 or something in the circumstances. 2 for 14 off his 2, took a wicket with his first ball. He's out there batting number 3. I was like, that's funny. He doesn't have the little blue stripe at the bottom of his short sleeved shirt. Saw him a little bit more closely on the coverage. He's just taken a long sleeve shirt and hacked the sleeves off with scissors so that it's even shorter than the short sleeve shirt, so that he can get the guns out, so that he can flex his muscles when he's batting. Like, no doubt whatsoever, it was ragged as shit. Like, you could see it was jagged. The line was just all over the place. He'd literally just gone to reception to borrow a pair of scissors and hacked the sleeves off at like when Bruce Springsteen rolls his sleeves up and then tucks the pack of cigarettes in there.
Yeah.
They were up at that level, like the sort of Bond's, original Wrangler sort of shirt level, because the short sleeve shirt was not short sleeved enough to show off the baseballs that he's got inserted under his skin on the upper arms.
Never change, Gulbadine Naib. Never retire either. Okay, that's going to do us in terms of throwing forward. We're going to have 2 shows most days from this point forward, so we'll divide and conquer a little bit. I'll be doing more of the earlier games for the most part. Geoff will be doing the later games, but also we'll have our cast of other co-hosts have been with us throughout the first 2.5 weeks in the group stage. They'll be doing more of the heavy lifting. All right, that's us done. There are other shows in the feed. There's a weekly show that we put out yesterday. You can join us at patreon.com/the final word to join the fun on our Discord page to get the ad-free feed as well. And we always thank Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Good night.
See ya.